Good morning. This is Marcy Zog, and I'm the Strategic Volunteer Engagement Manager with United Way. I want to say, first of all, thank you so much to everybody that is participating in the Day of Caring by hosting a volunteer project. This is our project coordinator training, and we're going to try this as an online video versus something that where we get together. Hopefully that will save you a little time. If you do have questions, as always, myself or Amy Daniels will be here to help you out along the way. So let's go ahead and get started. So because of you, of course, we've had 20 days of caring altogether. 1,691 projects have been completed. 97,401 hours have been donated by volunteers. 24,216 volunteers have participated, and this adds up to more than $2.2 million in the value of volunteer impact. So thank you so much for all that you do to make the Day Caring a huge success. If it wasn't for you, this wouldn't be such a wonderful day. And we just thank you so much for how you work with our volunteers. So our 2019 Spring Day of Caring is May 16th, so it is coming up next week. I want to say thank you for answering our call. We have had 120 projects submitted and over 2,000 volunteers were requested. Our agenda for this meeting is we will go over the Day of Caring timeline. We'll look at some best practices. We'll take a look at how you can get into the Volunteer Hub and access your volunteer information as well as your project information. I'm not going to go over questions. I apologize for that one still being on here. And then we'll go ahead and close. Like I said, if you do have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. So our Day of Caring timeline, we started our project recruitment back in March. We opened up for volunteer registration on April 11th, and we closed registration today. So we will, or yesterday actually, so we'll be getting some information out to you today, including this training. Project coordinators, that's you. You'll be able to access your team leader and volunteer information at any time online. You can do that now and in the future. You'll be able to see your team leaders, individuals, and project coordinators. We're going to ask you guys to connect and pre-plan before the day. We're going to ask you to do that starting today through the 9th. And then we'll be asking you as project coordinators to be sure that your staff is ready for the volunteers to arrive so the volunteers feel welcome and the project's ready to go May 6th through the 16th, just so that staff's ready by the time the volunteers get there. And then, of course, our Day of Caring is on May 16th. So best practices, some key points with your teams. We ask that you communicate with your team leaders before the Day of Caring. May 6th to the 9th, prepare your staff, May 6th to 16th, and make sure that you're prepared to start your day as soon as your volunteers are asked to arrive on May 16th. When you're communicating with those volunteers, some things that you'll want to talk about, and we do have an email set up that you can just plug information into, is confirming that time the volunteers will arrive, verifying the number of people that are going to be participating, talking about any specific duties for the project, confirming supplies that you may need. We do ask that you provide all supplies for the material or for the project, but if you want to offer up and have volunteers bring some extra, that's okay too. This one is a real big one, the rain plan. The caring goes on, rain or shine. So if you have an outdoor project and it does rain, we would ask that you have a plan in place with your volunteers, whether that's an alternate plan for a different project that day, or whether that's a plan to reschedule, or if it just doesn't work out with anybody's schedule, if you have to cancel the project. I do ask that you please let us know here at United Way what your plan is. If it differs from something that you put in online as your alternate plan, or if it is to cancel the project or a different day. Please remind your team if you're going to have snacks, lunch, dinner, drinks, water, things on site. We do ask that you have some water for them on site, but you are not responsible for them for lunch. We ask that you talk about that, because if you do plan to have lunch, we don't want the volunteers to bring lunch as well. Make sure you discuss your parking. If you have a small parking lot and people need carpool, make sure you're talking about that, or if parking is in a different place than what might be expected. And then also just a reminder for those volunteer team leaders that there will be a dual release form that you'll have, and that all volunteers need to sign this that day when they are on site. So best practices, preparing for the day. This is with your staff. Remind your clients and your staff, if it's appropriate, of the day's activities. Align an alternative staff member to be the project manager, just in case you're ill that day or something happens, somebody else can still carry out that project. Be sure you have enough staff to assign to manage those projects. So if you have multiple locations or multiple projects going on, we just don't want the volunteers to have to stand around and wait for instructions. Make sure that you have a contingency plan if you have too many or too few volunteers. We know that happens sometimes, and we just want to make sure that we do keep those volunteers busy. Don't be afraid if you have too many volunteers. Ask them to do other things. If, again, your event is weather dependent, make sure you've got that plan in place and everybody knows how that will work. And then you might want to have a first aid kit on site just for safety reasons. I do actually want to go back here for a second and talk a little bit about safety. We, for the Day of Caring, ask that you do not, or actually we prohibit the use of wood chippers, chainsaws, or doing things on a roof or anything that takes over an 8-foot ladder. If you have staff that are on site that would use those machines, that's fine, but the volunteers cannot. We also want to remind you that if a volunteer has never used a tool before, the Day of Caring is not the day to do that. So we just ask that you're prepared and ready for that. Event day expectations. Again, be prepared for your guests when they arrive. So when they walk in, you've got staff greeting them and letting them know where they're supposed to go. If you haven't built in that they're going to put the materials out that day, make sure that they are in place and ready to go. Make sure that you welcome your guests when they arrive. Have each volunteer sign that dual release form and then return that back to United Way. That can be scanned and emailed back or printed and returned back. Make sure that you give your volunteers a brief orientation and tour of your agency or program. This is an important piece. We want to make sure the volunteers understand why what they're doing is important and how they're making a difference in our community. And then be sure, of course, to let them know where those bathrooms are, the drinks, and if they are going to have their lunch break with you, where that will be. On the event day, make sure that you review your project details with the team when they arrive and that you've allowed for that setup and cleanup. Provide any necessary training or orientation that your organization may require or that the project requires. Be accessible to those volunteers to answer any questions as necessary. They may have questions throughout the day, so you just want to make sure that they can access you or somebody from your staff. And of course, always make sure that you're saying thank you to those volunteers. So now we're going to talk about how do you access your team information on the Volunteer Hub. Let me switch over to that here really quickly. Okay. So on the Volunteer Hub, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to this website, and I will be sending this out with the email that this training will go out with as well, so you'll have access to this link. You're going to go ahead and log in on the screen, and once you log into your personal account in the system, you're going to see up at the top an option to do My Agency. You're going to click on My Agency, and then you're going to see your agency name show up. Right now you can see United Way of the Quad Cities. It's kind of faint here, but you can see on the page it'll look like this from the top down. You'll be able to see across the way here, you're going to click on Advanced Events. When you click on Advanced Events, you're going to be able to see your project title. I'm going to make this just a little smaller so we can see it all. Your project title will be right in here. The number of volunteers you requested and the number of volunteers that are registered will be over here. Grayed means that they're not filled in. Green means that they are. And you can see 100% of your volunteers are registered. To view your project details, you're going to click the project name, and that will take you into those project details. And to view your volunteers, you'll click this green bar here. When you click the green bar, you're going to be able to see a list of your volunteer names, as you can see down here, as well as emails. You can export this data, and you can do all these different things down here. Now, I do want to note, we want you to speak with your team leaders. So you're going to come down here and you're going to look for leader. Yes, if it's marked yes, those are the people that you will be communicating with. You may have more than one John Deere employee listed as a leader, and we do want you to reach out to all of them by May 6th. We suggest that you do that via email. And again, I will have a template that you can plug your information into. So you can export this information and easily email these volunteers. We do ask that when you email the volunteers that you are sure that your volunteers, that you don't use this information for soliciting or reaching out to them beyond the day of caring. So that is really how the day of caring will go. I just want to for sure say thank you to you. This is a really important day to us, to our community, to these volunteers. I know everybody enjoys the day, and so thank you so much. Again, you can always reach out to Amy Daniels or myself, Marcy Zog, with any questions. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.